Hello everyone. In this video we are going to work or to deal with lab 6.2.7 from DevNet Associate course from Cisco, and this lab is about containers. So as a developer, if you still don't know the containers, so I think this is a time to start deal with Docker. So here the process or the concept of Docker is illustrated in this figure. So first you should have an image. So if you don't have an image, you have to create an image. So whatever, so you have an image, and from the image you will use or create the container. So to create an image by yourself, so you will use Docker build, and after that you are going to run this image to create the container. So the concept or the process is like this. First, you have an application, and then you put an application, you create an image based on this application, and then you can start call or put it in a Docker, and then you can run this image whenever you want and make this environment available also for distribution. So what are we going to do in this lab? First, we are going to a little bit review the bash script because it's one of the requirements for dealing with Docker. And then we are going to create a sample web application. And then we are going to test this and configure this web application in part 3 and part 4. And then in part 5, we are going to build the image and run the container, and then we are going to check how to investigate this container. Okay, so to recap what we are going to do in this lab. First, we are going to review the bash script. Then we are going to build and modify a Python script for simple web application. And then we are going to create a bash script to automate the process of creating a Docker file. Then we build the image, and then we start the Docker container, and then we run the container, and finally we are going to investigate some new commands related to Docker. What is in first part? This is the very used one. So we have to do this lab inside this virtual machine, and in part 2 we are start to deal a little bit or review bash script. Okay, so let's do this tutorial. Let's move to this location. And here we have to create a file, and the name of the file should be user input.sh. So to create a file in Linux, you can use the command touch, and then let's say user input.sh for shell. This extension represents this is a shell script. And then according to this tutorial, we have to use Nano, but of course you are free to use Vim or Visual Studio, whatever you want. And here, as you can see, the commands that you can deal with this Nano is also an editor. And here we can use write out to save or whatever we want. Okay, so the first line in the bash script should be written in this form, and this is called shebang. Well, actually, this line tells the Linux kernel that this file contains a command or commands that should be implemented in a bash. So what we can see here, that as you know, the black screen, this in the terminal is called, this is a bash, this black screen. And here we are going through this line telling the Linux kernel or Linux that this file contains commands should be implemented or run inside the bash, and the bash is under the root bin directory under a bash directory. This is called shebang. Okay, and in shell script, we can, for example, now let's follow this example here, and here we can ask the user, will enter a new line to enter a name, and here we are going to read the name, and here we are define the variable, and this variable is username, and then finally we are going to print the name in this form. So here to print only, so if we type only like the name is username without this dollar sign, it means it will print out the username itself, but this dollar sign means that the content of this variable. So this is a variable, and this we are going to print the content of this variable because of this dollar sign. Okay, let's take an example here to make it much easier. So let's say x equals 4 without spaces. Then we are going to say like echo x, and now this is x the value, but when I say echo $x, it means that the content of this x, and here it's of course 4. Okay, so let's return back to the our code, and now let's save it, and as you can see it is in right. It's Control and O, and the file it would be saved in this form. Yes, just press enter and then exit, and then let's see this file. As you can see the content of this file here. Now to run this file, since it's a bash script, so we should use the command bash, and then we type the name of the command, and here enter the name, and let's say A1, and then the name is here printed out as we wanted. Okay, so let's see this file now. It is like in a long format. Let's get more information about this file, and as you can see it's still not executable. So to make this file executable, and we don't need to print this bash at the beginning, so in this case we have to change the permission of this file. And to change the permission, as you know, we change the command change mode, and then we put A for all, and then plus X to make all of them executable, and then we put the name of the file. And now let's check the file again, and as you can see all of them now, the user, the owner, group, and others are permitted to execute this file. So now you can run this command in this format. Just type // and the name of the file, and again the file here is executable without the bash command. And also we don't need now to indicate the extension, so we can change the name of this file to without sh, and here one more time ls, that's the file, and as you can see now it is in a green format. So this is the file, and let's run it again, and here H, and this is the file here is printed out. So this is hopefully is a fast review about shell script. Okay, so this lab is about Docker, and to create an image of the Docker we need to put something in this image. So for that reason, in the next part, or in the second or in the third part, we are going to create a sample web application, and this is a few lines of code by using a Flask framework. And this is a framework based on Python that make it easier for developers to create reliable, scalable, and maintainable web application. Of course, there are other frameworks like this one or this one. However, the goal behind this lab, we have to keep we need to learn Docker. So for that reason, we are going to create a simple a sample application. This application returns the client, the IP address of the client. as you can see here. So this application, what we are going to do to create is to have a web, and then always returning the IP address of the client. Okay, so we are going to use the loopbug so in this lab. Okay, so first we need to install the Flask. And then we need, of course, to import it to a file. The name of the file will be sample Python, and it's already located in the sample application directory. Okay, let's check this file if it's there. Yes, this file is here. So let's create, or let's open this file. I will open it with Visual Studio. Okay, and here, as you can see, add the add the add to this file for the sample lab. So we are going to import or learn um, the lines from here from the lab. So, or from this document. For first thing, we need to import the Flask and we need to import the request. So these two modules going to be used in this code. Okay. And then we need to create an instance from this Flask model, and we are going to call it sample, as you can see here. Just copy paste it again here as required. And then after that we are going to put these two functions, and this one here, like in Python, called decoration. If you like don't know yet this that feature in Python, I recommend you to do so. So I can explain it now in a very short way. So actually this is a function inside the sample, as you can see here, and it's called, and this function is used like as inner function to call one of the parameters which will be sent this main function. So this main function is going to be deals or as an argument inside this sample route. And here is also another few lines of explanation about this function or about this add. So as you can see here, it's a Flask use not like a routing technique. Of course, it's not like the routing in networking, but it is inside this sample. So what we need to know here, that this is a function that we are going to call, and the parameter of this function we are going to send the main like as a parameter with this function. However, again, this add is called decoration in Python. Okay, so let's take these lines and paste it in here. Okay, and what we are going to return inside now from this method, we are going to return you are calling me from, and here we are using the request to print out the IP address of the client, and then we enter a new line. Okay, in the final step, we are printing out, or we are specifying here, we are checking that if the name is main, we are calling or we are running this file itself. So we are here assigning the host with the IP address like this, and the port number for it is 8080. Okay, so let's save this file. It's already there, we need only to save it. And as you know, I'm going to run it from here directly. So Python 3 and then sample application.python, this one. And as you can see here, we have this IP address here. So I can copy this one. Let's try to check. We have to get, you are calling me, as you can see here, you are calling me from this IP address. We can also open a new terminal and paste it here. We have the same outcome. So if I will type IP address, this is the IP address of the loopback, and it is the one used here. Okay, so because we are actually using the IP address of the loopback itself. Okay, so let's move forward, and we already did this, and now we are going to configure the web application to use website files. So as you know, the website file, the first file will be loaded is index.html, and there is also a style.css. So these two files are already in this image, so let's check them. Don't forget here, before you continue work, you have to stop the server, and to stop the server, Control and C. And now let's check these two files. As you can see here, we have static and we have templates. And here we are inside the statics, and we can check this file. In style.css, we have in the body the background, and it is light steel blue. And let's check what inside the template. And as you can see here, we have the request remote address. We already have it in the main program. Let's check it here. This one. And we have here the head and the body of this index, and we have here you are calling me from, and we put the request remote, the address of the client, and that's it. So what we need to modify now in the main program, we only need to import the render template. And we don't need now to return this value because it's always in the index. We only need to put this line here. I'm using Control C now, and here Control and V. So we are going to return the value here, render template index.html, which has already in the body the value that we wanted to print out here. If you have experience, or if you have a knowledge in this CSS or index file, you are free to modify them. However, we are using the tutorial here. So again, I'm going to save it, and I will return back here, and I will run it again from here. This is the file here, as you can see, and now I'm going to run it by using Python 3 and the ensemble. Okay, so I'm going to take this one here, and I have to see now the output in a blue frame. or I can refresh this page, and as you can see here, now it's a blue background and it's in the bold style. Okay, when I will run it from another file here, for example, I use curve. It should also, I should also have the same file here. And as you can see here now, I have this output. Okay, so don't forget you have to stop the server. And now we have the application is ready. And it's running. As you can see, there is the output here. Okay, so till now what we have got, we have finished the application, and now let's assume we have this application, we want to put it in a Docker image, and then we put it in a container and start to use this container whenever we want. So to deal with the container, actually you have to follow these like points here, like a procedure. First, you need to create a temporary directory because you will put all the files of this application in this directory. Okay, so these represented by 1 and 2. Everything related to this application, everything is needed inside to run your application should be in a temporary directory, and then you build the image or create the Docker file, and then in this Docker file actually is an file will only be existed during the container. When you run the container, the Docker file will be existed. When you stop and remove the container, this Docker file will not be existent in the system, as you will see in very soon. And then we build the Docker container, and then finally we start the container and start to run it again and check it. Okay, so to build a container, as I mentioned in the beginning, you have to deal with bash script. So here we are going, let's close this one, and now let's deal with the bash script, but in this way we are going to create a Docker file. So let's move to the directory, and this file here is a shell script, as you can see, and here this file will be modified. I'm going to modify it now using Vim. Okay, so the first one in the bash script, as we mentioned, we should put the shebang line. Why? I think it's clear now, because this file contains commands that should be implemented in a bash. Okay, so the second line, we are going to create a directory, a temporary directory, which is in these two points. So create a directory and then copy everything to this directory. So here we make directory, we will have temp directory, and then we are copy this temps to this directory and the static also to this directory. So if we are going here to see things, so here this static and this templates, we would like to copy them to the this temporary directory. Keep in mind here that now in these lines we are only creating a directory. So to copy them, we are going to use these lines. And the first one, cp for copy, and the file sample application.python. This is the file, and copy it to this directory. The second one, since this is a folder, as you saw here, this is static, and templates, they are folders, so you should use the R for recursive, this option. And here you put the star. It represents that everything inside this directory, I mean templates, should be copied to this new path, which is temp directory templates. And everything inside the static directory should be copied to this new location. Okay, so the star here, or the asterisk here, is about everything inside the directory. And this is very important point, because if you miss one of the files, the Docker will not work properly. Okay, now we created the directory, we copied everything we need to this directory. Now we are going to create an image. To create an image, we should create a Docker file. So what is the Docker file? Actually, a Docker file will be created inside this file here itself. So what we need, of course, with this application, if you remember, we used Python. So we need to install Python in this image. So we need Python. So to do this, we need to install Python. And to install Python in a Docker file, we can use this command. So from Python, and we put it inside temp directory Docker file. So during the execution of when you run the file, there will be a Docker file inside temp directory, which we created here. So till now, we have temp directory will be created. Inside this directory, we will have templates, we have statics, and we have a Docker file. Okay, what is inside Docker file? We have Python installed. Okay, what we need also, if you remember, we wanted, or we installed this module, which is a Flask. And also we are going to install it here, because this is totally a new like a new image for you, Linux image or Linux kernel, and you need to install whatever you want to use. So in the beginning, you put all the files you need to about related to your applications, and then you need to prepare the environment for this application to work properly. So you need Python, you need this Flask to be installed inside this Docker or inside this container. So what we need to do, actually, you need to put now everything inside the container. And to do this, you have to use the docker copy command. And here we are going to create a virtual, or we are going to create a folder or a directory that contains all the above what we need inside this directory. So as you can see here, we are going to create under the home directory a folder or a directory called my application. It will have everything from the original static directory. This is the first one, and we put it in a Docker file. And the second one, we are going also to use the second Docker copy command. And the third one is we copy the file as well. So here, as you can see, we use copy, and everything from the folder static, we are copied it to this directory, to this direction, my application. You will see it. It will be there inside when we run the Docker. So if I go to check it now, here under the home, there is no my application. This directory is not here, but when I will run the container, there will be here my application, and it will have these folders or directories. Okay, and then we need to expose the port, as we use the expose command to expose the port 8080 to also the container. And of course, now everything is okay. So we need to run the file, and to run the file through the Docker file, we need to use the cmd Python as a command, and we give a path to the directory. So here we need to run this application Python. We already did this locally, but now we are going to use the Docker. So here we have cmd represents, this is a command, Python 3, and the direction to this file. And as you can see, the direction is the new direction we just created here. Okay, so we put this in the Docker file as well. Now what we need to build the container. Okay, so to build the container, we have to go again to this temp directory we already created. Everything is still inside the Docker file, and this is the command to build the container. And then after build the container, we need to run the container. And to run the container, we can use this command here that it will be explained now. So what we have here, as you can see, this is docker run, and -t that specifies or represents that you need or we need the terminal during with the container, so we can access it, we can deal with it. And the -d, this is for like running, indicates that you want the container to run in the background. And of course you can use docker ps -i to list all the dockers of process. And then we have -p here, which is about the port number. We specify the port number again. So this is the internal port number and this is the external port number. In this example, they are the same, but it is not actually necessary. It may happen that this port number, the internal one, is different than the external one. And then we have the names. So here, this is the name of the internal, and this is the name that you want to give for this to deal with it when you run it. So here, this is free. You are like free, of course, to use it, because this one will you will use it to interact with the Docker, but the second one should be similar to this one because they are like the same. So you are here matching that the name, or you give a nickname to this Docker or to this container with this name. Of course, you can run the image with more than one, the same image. You can run it more than one time at the same time, of course. Okay, and then finally we need to list here the commands because we used -d. So here we need to list the processes. And then finally we can save the script and then we can run it. So to save this one, escape, and this is a vim colon wq and exclamation mark, and it's saved. Let's check it again. As you can see here now in the cut, you can also use more, or you can use vim one more time. Okay, so part 6 is how now we would like to run this file or this Docker file. To run this file, as you already now know, actually this is a shell script file and you can run it using bash, or you can change the permission of this file. Let's see the permission of this file first. As you can see here again, it is X missing. So if I will type now like this, it will not be executed. It will say that there is permission, so it's not a running file. So let's check it. As you can see, permission denied because it's of course it's not executable. So to run it, you can of course change it to the permission, but we are following now the tutorial and we are going to run it using bash. Okay, so as you can see here now, we have this step is executed correctly, and here we have port, here we have information, and here we have also more like about this Docker. So let's open a new terminal, and now let's check ls, and we can see here that this is directory is just created here. It wasn't here before because this is what we just created when we called the Docker file, if you remember, tm directory, and we put the everything inside it. So if I will type now tm directory, and you can see here there is a Docker file. There is also a sample application where is the starting, and there is a template. The Docker file is just created now, and let's see the content of this Docker file. As you can see, this is what we used in this file from Python, and this is we installed the Flask, and then we copied them to my home directory. We put them my application, sorry, under the home my application, and then we expose the port, and then we also run the file itself under from the home. Okay, so now what we need to do, for example, the list of process was like very long, and if we are now going to print them out here, it may happen that it takes like a long list and we will not be able to check them all. So to be in the safety side, we are going to like put them in a file, and then we can return to them wherever we want. So here at docker ps -a, if I type it like this, as you can see here, we have to margin the screen, and it's not very comfortable. So in this way it's preferred, as is recommended in the tutorial, is to put them in a file so we can return to them and check them later. So here I'm calling running.txt, and here ls again, and here we have running.txt file, so we can then after that check it when we want. Okay, and we can like read them, check the processes and so on. Okay, so what we need to do more? Now, of course, let's check the application if it's running or not. Let's copy this one. I'm going using Control C. As you can see here, we have this IP here, and let's use it here as well. As you can see here, we have the output here. And to check again the IP address, we already did this process, this step. So we already checked also this step. We checked the IP address of the loopback, and we also checked the IP address of the Docker container. As you can see now, it's from the Docker. In the beginning it was local and it was 127, and now since we are running it from the Docker, so the IP now is 172.17. So if we are going to check it again, you can see the IP of the Docker, it is 172. At the beginning, before the Docker, we used the local machine and we used the loopback, and the IP was 127. Now we have the IP 172, as you can see here one more time here. Okay, so now how can we access the Docker or the image that we just installed. So actually what we have now with the Docker is a totally Linux system. So you can do whatever you want with this Linux system. So to access this Linux system, we have to input the command Docker, and then we type execute, and IT for I is interactive and T for a terminal. So, and then the name of the image that we put it in the terminal in the Docker file, and of course we use it with bin with the bash. So remember this sample running, it is a name of the Docker we gave. So here, if I will copy this to the terminal, as you can see here now, we have now, I am the root under this image in the name of this Docker. So if I type ls now, I have now like a new image or a new Linux. So let's move to the home. And as you can see here, there is my application we just created in the Docker file. If I go to under my application, I will have the templates, and I have the static, and I have the file here. So actually we have now in this image, we have a totally like a new Linux system. Okay, so this is the way we can access the container. So if you have a Docker container, you can like run it, and then you use this command docker execution exec, and then it, and then sample running the name of the Docker, and then you give bin bash at the end that you would like to use the bash terminal. Okay, to exit this, return back to the original machine, you just type exit command. Here again we are in the same directory, and now to stop a container, you can just type docker stop and then the name of the container. Okay, and now let's check the processes. And as you can see here, exits 7 seconds ago, but it's still there. So it's here. And if you would like to start it again, you can start the container one more time. Or if you would like to stop it or remove it forever, you can use rm and the name. First you have to stop it, sorry, and then you have to remove it. You cannot remove it directly. So the first stop, and then you are free. If you would like to use it again, so it's okay, you type the command start, and if you would like to remove it or delete it directly, you type the rm command. So now I'm going to remove it there from the machine, and then let's check again the process, and you can see here there is no container running at this time. Okay, so I think that's all for this tutorial, this lab. Uh, I also recommend you to like create your own application and then run it in your own machine and then run it on a Docker. You can also look around using about Docker, because it's an essential part now for developers to learn how to deal with Dockers and how to create or modify container, how to interact with them, because like it's creating a complete environment, and then you can run the same application in the same environment, so regarding on your machine. Thanks, and see you next video.